Hello and welcome to Chaos Theory, the news as seen by AI. I'm your host, Beatrix Kiddo, and today is January 29th, 2025. We have a fascinating array of stories for you today, so buckle up and get ready for a wild ride. First up, we have an incredible tale of human endurance. An aerospace engineer has set a new world record by living underwater for 120 days. Can you imagine spending 4 months beneath the waves? We'll dive into the details of this amazing feat and find out what motivated this aquatic adventurer. Next, the Doomsday Clock has ticked closer to midnight than ever before. The clock, which symbolizes the threat of global catastrophe, is now at just 89 seconds to midnight. We'll explore what's driving this ominous development and what it means for our future. On a lighter note, did you know that expressive faces make people more likable? We'll take a look at the science behind this phenomenon and explore the ways in which our facial expressions shape our social interactions. But wait, it gets weirder. Scientists have discovered that human corpses can continue to move for over a year after death. We'll get to the bottom of this spooky story and find out what's causing these post-mortem movements. And if that's not enough to pique your curiosity, we have a story about people who can't see with their mind's eye. These individuals, known as Aphantasiacs, have different wiring in their brains that prevents them from visualizing images in their minds. We'll delve into this fascinating condition and find out what it's like to live without mental imagery. Finally, we'll take a look at the health risks of drinking alcohol and explore ways to limit them. Whether you're a casual drinker or a teetotaler, this is information that everyone can benefit from. So, that's what we have in store for you today on Chaos Theory. Stay tuned for a journey through the strange, the fascinating, and the downright bizarre. It's going to be a wild ride. In our next story, reported by Margarita Bossi for Gizmodo, an aerospace engineer named Rudiger Koch has just spent 120 days underwater, setting a new Guinness World Record for spending the longest amount of time underwater without depressurization.
Wow, that's quite the accomplishment. Koch spent 4 months in a small capsule 36 feet below the surface of the water off the coast of Panama. The capsule, constructed by Ocean Builders, a company co-founded by Koch, had a bed, toilet, internet, electricity, TV, and an exercise bike.
But no shower. Can you imagine not having access to fresh water for that long?
I don't even want to think about it. The underwater capsule was linked to an above-water pod by a tube containing a spiral staircase, but those stairs were just for visitors. Koch never emerged from the capsule during his 120-day stay.
The point of Koch's underwater adventure was to demonstrate the potential for sustainable aquatic human expansion. He believes that moving out to the ocean is something we should do to restore things like reefs and unlock the ocean as a new frontier.
It's definitely an interesting concept, but it remains to be seen how or if the experience impacted Koch's health and who else might be interested in living 36 feet below water.
In our next story, reported by Live Science for livescience.com, humanity is closer to species-threatening disaster than ever before. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists has moved the hand of the Doomsday Clock to 89 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been to catastrophe.
Oh, great. Just what we needed. More doom and gloom. What's pushing us towards the end this time?
Well, the Bulletin, a nonprofit co-founded by Albert Einstein in 1945, has long warned of trends pushing humans towards civilization collapse or extinction. Last year, they set their famous Doomsday Clock at 90 seconds to midnight. This year, it ticked 1 second closer due to ongoing threats from nuclear weapons, climate change, bioweapons and infectious disease, and disruptive technologies such as artificial intelligence.
Oh, just the usual then. Anything new on the nuclear front?
No new risks of nuclear annihilation in 2024, but the board found that the long-standing buildup of nuclear capacity around the world means that ongoing conflicts could quickly become nuclear due to a miscalculation or rash decision. The U.S. is a full participant in the nuclear arms race, recently embarking on an expensive modernization of its nuclear arsenal.
And climate change. I assume that's still a thing.
Yes, greenhouse gas emissions continue to increase globally, with investments to adapt to and mitigate climate change still too low. The board cited a 2024 Climate Policy Initiative report that found that investments need to increase fivefold to prevent the worst economic losses.
And what about infectious diseases? I feel like we've had enough of that recently.
The Science and Security Board cited the circulation of the H5N1 bird flu and the increased skepticism of public health recommendations post COVID 19. They also highlighted the increase in high containment biological laboratories worldwide and the need to balance researching infectious agents with preventing their accidental release.
And finally, artificial intelligence. Is Skynet becoming a reality?
AI is becoming a bigger concern, the board wrote, particularly because AI makes it easier to spread misinformation and disinformation. This corruption of the information ecosystem undermines the public discourse and honest debate upon which democracy depends, they wrote.
Well, that's just lovely. Anything else we should know?
The group's statement ends with a stark warning. Blindly continuing on the current path is a form of madness. The United States, China, and Russia have the collective power to destroy civilization. These three countries have the prime responsibility to pull the world back from the brink, and they can do so if their leaders seriously commence good faith discussions about the global threats outlined here. Despite their profound disagreements, they should take that first step without delay. In our next story, reported by Ethne Kavanaugh for Scientific American, we learn that facial expressions do more than just broadcast emotions. In fact, moving your face in some way, whether you're smiling, raising an eyebrow, or wrinkling your nose, may help people warm up to you more.
That's right, B. According to the research, people who are more facially expressive are more liked by a new social partner. This could explain why humans have evolved to have such expressive faces. In a recent study, it was found that people produce, on average, 101 facial movements per minute in a typical social interaction.
Wow, that's a lot of face moving. But why is facial expressivity so beneficial?
Well, B, social bonding is crucial to human survival. Throughout most of our evolutionary history, our species has relied on tight-knit communities to keep ourselves fed, sheltered, and protected from predators and dangerous outsiders. Managing social relationships was literally a matter of life or death. Any skill or behavior that improved someone's ability to create and keep life-saving bonds was likely to persist in our gene pool and cultural repertoires over the generations. And research suggests that facial expressivity may fall in this category.
Interesting. So in this study, 52 people were filmed in an online social interaction with a researcher who posed as another participant. These dialogues played out over a video platform so people could see one another's face. Unbeknownst to the real participants, the researcher orchestrated various challenging social scenarios, such as telling an awful joke or demanding 80% of a reward in a negotiation. These situations mimicked everyday experiences, such as social conflict, embarrassment, or an attempt to make a good impression. Throughout, the researchers observed how people's face moved.
That's right, B. And they also obtained recordings of more than 1,300 participants in free-flowing conversations with other, real participants online. Automated software then coded the small facial muscle movements they made during these interactions. Interestingly, more agreeable, extroverted, or neurotic people, as measured by a questionnaire, were more facially expressive. People with these personality traits may devote more time and energy to social interactions, whether because they enjoy socializing or have greater than average concerns about how they come across to others. And that added effort could be worthwhile, they found.
After these interactions, the participants and their social partners rated how much they liked each other, as did 176 other participants who viewed video clips of these people. The pattern was clear. People who were more facially expressive were more liked by others. But why would facial expressivity improve someone's ability to build social bonds?
Well, B. Imagine meeting someone new and trying to figure out if they're a good fit as a friend, colleague, or romantic partner. You might wonder if you can trust them, if they will help you or harm you, and whether you can even understand one another. Someone who is easier to read may seem to be a more appealing prospect than someone who is more guarded. The findings support this interpretation. After their social interaction, participants reported their thoughts and feelings at various points throughout the exchange. Later, the researchers compared what people were thinking with what others who saw video of those participants read in their face. It turns out that more facially expressive participants were indeed broadcasting what was on their mind through their face. And people viewing these videos thought the expressive participants appeared easier to read, which strongly related to their likability.
So, in short, being facially expressive may give others a sense that they understand you, which they like. This in turn supports the suggestion that the key function of facial expressivity is to make us more predictable. The work also underscores that facial expressions do far more than just communicate emotions. We might raise our eyebrows to show we're listening intently, share a knowing smile with a friend, or use a stern look to stop someone in their tracks. Sending these kinds of messages doesn't involve any particular emotional state.
That's right, B. And it's not just about expressing happiness. Although happy expressions were highly likable, expressive people were better liked even when they weren't particularly smiley. Furthermore, the researchers found that participants' level of expressivity didn't change across situations or with different social partners, even as the specific emotions involved shifted. This suggests that facial expressivity is a consistent trait of an individual rather than something that changes depending on the context.
So, in conclusion, the research shows that facial expressions do far more than just broadcast emotions, and that being facially expressive may help people warm up to you more. This could explain why humans have evolved to have such expressive faces. And it's not just about expressing happiness. Expressive people were better liked even when they weren't particularly smiley. So, next time you're in a social situation, don't be afraid to let your features fly free. In our next story, reported by Aristos Georgiou for Newsweek, we have a fascinating discovery about what happens to our bodies after we die. David, have you ever wondered if corpses move after death?
Well, B. I always thought that once you're dead, but it seems I might be wrong.
That's right, David. An Australian researcher named Alison Wilson found that human corpses can move significantly as they decompose. She observed a dead body over a 17-month period and discovered that it moved for more than a year after death.
Wow, that's creepy, but also really interesting. How did she figure this out?
Wilson filmed a donor body using a time-lapse camera at a facility called the Australian Facility for Taphonomic Experimental Research, or AFTER. It's basically a human body farm where researchers study the process of human decomposition.
I've heard of body farms before, but I never knew they existed in Australia. What kind of movements did Wilson observe?
She noticed that the arms were significantly moving. Arms that started off down beside the body ended up out to the side. Wilson believes that the process of decomposition could be responsible for these movements, as the body mummifies and the ligaments dry out.
That's wild. I wonder what implications this could have for post-mortem investigations.
Exactly, David. Wilson suggests that her findings could help police estimate the time of death more accurately and improve judgments about the cause of death. It could also help in disaster investigations and give victims a voice to tell their last story.
I can see how that would be really important. It's fascinating to think that even after death, our bodies can still reveal so much about what happened to us.
Absolutely. And this research is just the beginning. Experts in the field are taking note of Wilson's findings, and it will be interesting to see what further studies reveal.
Well, B, I think we can both agree that this story is definitely one to remember. Who knows, maybe one day it will help solve a crime or bring closure to a grieving family.
David, have you ever heard of aphantasia before?
I can't say that I have, B. What is it?
Well, it's a condition where people can't visualize images in their mind. It's like if I asked you to picture a beach, you wouldn't be able to see it in your mind's eye.
That sounds wild. So, what did the researchers find out about it?
They found that even though people with aphantasia can't visualize images, the blueprints for those images might still be in their brains. They used a technique called binocular rivalry to test this theory.
Binocular rivalry? What's that?
It's when two different images are shown to each eye, and the brain has to choose which one to focus on. The researchers found that people with aphantasia had different brain activity during this test compared to people without the condition.
That's fascinating. So, what does this mean for people with aphantasia?
It means that even though they can't visualize images, their brains might still be processing them in a different way. It's like their brains are speaking a different language when it comes to visualizing images.
That's wild. I can't imagine not being able to visualize things in my mind.
It's definitely a unique experience. But this research is helping us understand more about the condition and how the brain works.
That's great. I'm always amazed by the mysteries of the brain.
Me too, David. And who knows what other discoveries are waiting to be made. In our next story, reported by Samar Bajaj for Scientific American, it looks like moderate drinking might not be as safe as we thought.
Oh no, what's the scoop, B?
Well, the U.S. Surgeon General just released an advisory stating that moderate alcohol consumption is linked to 7 different types of cancer. Yikes.
That's not good. But I thought I heard somewhere that moderate drinking was actually good for your heart.
You're right, David. There have been conflicting reports on this. A review from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine found that moderate drinking was associated with a lower risk of heart disease and death. But another federal report found the opposite.
So what's the deal? Is moderate drinking good or bad for us?
It's a bit complicated, David. Alcohol is a leading cause of preventable death and is associated with over 200 health conditions across every organ system. But drinking in moderation, which is about 1 drink per day for women and 2 for men, poses a small risk for the average person.
I see. So it's all about balance then.
Exactly, David. And many Americans are reevaluating their relationship with alcohol. In fact, about 1/3 of drinkers said they would cut back or abstain from alcohol this month for Dry January.
That's a great initiative, B. And it's not just for January. Global sales of non-alcoholic beverages have been on the rise as well.
That's right, David. And for those who do choose to drink, it's important to be aware of the risks and to follow national guidelines, which suggest limiting intake to just 1 or 2 drinks per day. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Chaos Theory, the news as seen by AI. I'm Beatrix Kiddo, your daily host, and I'm glad you could join me. Remember to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. On this day in history, in 1845, Edgar Allan Poe's famous poem, The Raven, was first published. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for more news, and always fact-check AI-based news summaries before sharing. Have a great day.